I want you to imagine something with me right now. Picture a woman standing at the edge of a doorway. Behind her is everything familiar, everything that once felt like home, a relationship that's drained her, a love that became a cage, a man who stopped seeing her worth. And in front of her, there's just open space, unknown territory, no guarantees, no promises, just her own 2 feet in a decision that terrifies her. Now here's what most people will never tell you. The moment she turns around and walks through that door, something cosmic shifts, not just in her life, but in the entire spiritual architecture of her existence. She doesn't just leave a bad situation. She doesn't just walk away from someone who couldn't love her right. No, she does something far more profound. She reclaims her original value. She steps back into her divine design. And here's the mystery that I've spent decades studying, the mystery that changed everything I understood about relationships, about worth, about power. When she walks away, she wins twice. Not once, twice. And if you don't understand this principle, you'll spend your whole life giving your presence to people who should have been terrified to lose you. I'm going to share something with you today that might disturb you. It might make you uncomfortable. It might make you look at every relationship decision you've ever made through a completely different lens. Because what I'm about to reveal isn't just relationship advice. This is spiritual law. This is kingdom principle. This is the architecture of how value, worth, and power actually operate in the universe. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You see, I've counseled thousands of people. I've sat across from women who were brilliant, anointed, full of purpose and potential, who'd reduced themselves to begging for breadcrumbs of attention from men who should have been building altars of gratitude for their presence. And I've watched something miraculous happen when they finally understood this one truth, the truth about walking away, the truth about the double victory, the truth that nobody wants to teach because it disrupts the entire system that keeps people trapped in relationships that were never meant to contain them. Now watch what happens when you truly understand this truth. When you walk away from the wrong thing, you don't just create space, you create a vacuum. And nature, as they say, abhors a vacuum. That empty space you've created by removing what was wrong becomes a magnetic force for what is right. This is why people who stay in the wrong relationship for 10 years see nothing change. But the moment they walk away, within months, sometimes weeks, the right opportunity, the right person, the right doors begin to appear. It's not coincidence. It's spiritual law. You cannot receive what you're destined for while your hands are full of what you settle for. I've watched this play out hundreds of times. The woman who finally leaves the man who's been stringing her along for 5 years with promises of marriage within 6 months. She meets someone who proposes within the first year. Not because she got lucky, but because she finally created the space for her actual destiny to manifest. The man who walks away from the business partnership that's been draining his vision and resources, suddenly investors appear. Opportunities emerge, doors open that were invisible before. Why? Because when you're entangled with the wrong thing, you're operating on the wrong frequency. You're broadcasting on a channel that attracts more of what you don't want. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Your obedience to walk away is the key that unlocks your next level. Every major transition in your life, every quantum leap, every significant upgrade has required you to leave something behind. The Israelites couldn't enter the promised land while sitting in Egypt. They had to walk away first. But here's where most people miss it. They walk away physically but not mentally. They leave the relationship but keep replaying the conversations. They exit the situation but stay emotionally invested in proving they were right or making the other person see their value. That's not walking away, that's walking in circles around the same prison you just escaped. True freedom, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself, begins when you stop needing the other person to understand your departure. You don't need them to validate your reasons. You don't need them to admit they were wrong. You don't need them to chase you, beg you, or finally see what they lost. The moment you require any of those things, you've handed them the keys to your peace. I've watched people sabotage their own liberation because they couldn't resist the urge to be understood. They'd finally build up the courage to leave a toxic situation, but then they'd send that long text message. They'd write the email explaining everything in painstaking detail. They'd show up one more time to get closure. And every single time they'd walk away more frustrated than before, because the person who couldn't see your worth while you were present isn't going to have a revelation the moment you're absent. Here's what maturity looks like. You realize that some people will never understand your perspective, and that's okay. Their understanding is not a prerequisite for your freedom. Their agreement is not necessary for your healing. Their acknowledgement is not required for your truth to be valid. You can leave without applause. You can heal without an audience. You can be right without a witness. The people who truly walk away understand something profound. Closure is something you give yourself, not something you extract from someone else. Real closure is the internal decision that you've learned what you needed to learn, you've given what you could give, and now it's time to redirect your energy towards something that actually has a future. Because here's the reality, and I need you to hear this clearly: every moment you spend trying to make someone understand why you left is a moment stolen from the life you're trying to build. Every ounce of energy you invest in proving your point to someone who's already demonstrated they don't value your voice is energy you're not investing in your own growth, your own dreams, your own purpose. Let me tell you something that took me years to understand. The people who truly deserve to be in your life won't need a closing argument. They won't require a PowerPoint presentation explaining your worth. When you matter to someone, when they genuinely value what you brought to the table, your absence speaks louder than any words you could ever articulate. You see, I've watched countless people, brilliant, talented, extraordinary people, shrink themselves into smaller and smaller boxes, trying to communicate their value to someone who's already decided they're disposable. And it breaks my heart every single time. Because what they don't realize is that explanation is a form of begging. It's saying, please see me differently than you've chosen to see me. It's asking someone to rewrite history when they've already moved on to their next chapter. The truth is, mature people don't need closure from others because they've developed the capacity to close things themselves. They understand that sometimes the period at the end of the sentence is the only punctuation you're going to get. No exclamation point of recognition. No question mark inviting further dialogue. Just a simple, quiet period. And that has to be enough. I want you to think about this for a moment. When a surgeon closes an incision, they don't need permission from the wound. They assess that the necessary work has been completed, and they close it. The wound doesn't get a vote. The wound doesn't get to demand an explanation for why the procedure is ending. The surgeon makes a professional, clinical decision that the intervention is complete, and they move forward with the healing process. Your relationships work the same way. You have the authority, the divine right, I would argue, to declare that something is finished. You don't need consensus. You don't need agreement. You don't need the other person to validate your decision or understand your reasoning. You simply need to accept that you've reached the end of what this particular connection was meant to teach you. And here's what most people miss. The obsession with making someone understand why you left is often rooted in something much deeper than a desire for clarity. It's rooted in an unhealed need for validation. It's the voice of your inner child saying, if they understand why they hurt me, maybe they'll finally acknowledge my pain. Maybe they'll finally admit I mattered, but you're not a child anymore. You have the power now. You don't need their confession to validate your experience. You don't need their apology to move forward. You don't need them to see your worth for you to know it exists. This is perhaps the hardest truth you'll ever have to swallow. Some people will never understand what they did to you. Some people lack the emotional intelligence, the self-awareness, or the courage to face their own darkness. Some people are so wrapped up in their own pain that they can't even see yours. And some people simply don't care. And that's on them, not you. Your healing cannot be contingent on their awakening. Your peace cannot be held hostage by their acknowledgement. Your freedom cannot wait for their permission. Think about it this way. Imagine you're standing at a bus stop, waiting for a bus that's never coming. You've checked the schedule. You've waited patiently. You've even called the transit company. But that route was canceled years ago, and nobody told you. Now, you can stand there for the rest of your life, insisting that the bus asterisk should asterisk come, that the schedule asterisk says asterisk it should come, that you have every asterisk right asterisk to expect it to come. Or you can accept the reality that it's not coming and find another way home. Waiting for certain people to understand you is waiting for a bus that's never coming. And here's what's tragic. While you're standing there, rehearsing your speech, crafting your message, waiting for the perfect moment to make them understand, life is passing you by. Opportunities for real connection are walking past you. People who are capable of seeing you, truly seeing you, are waiting for you to show up fully. But you can't, because you're still stuck at that bus stop, waiting for validation from someone who's already proven they can't give it to you. I'm not saying this to be harsh. I'm saying this because I care about your time. I care about your energy. I care about the precious, limited days you have on this earth. And I refuse to let you waste them begging for crumbs from someone who's shown you they have no bread. Now listen to me carefully. The reason you keep going back has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with you. And I need you to hear this with clarity. You have made them your source. You have elevated a human being you're flawed, broken, limited human being to the position of God in your life. And that's not love. That's idolatry. You've given them power they were never meant to have. You've assigned them value they cannot generate. You've made their approval the thing you need to feel worthy. Their presence the thing you need to feel complete. Their attention the thing you need to feel seen. And because you've positioned them as your source, you will always feel empty when they withdraw. You will always feel panic when they're silent. You will always feel desperate when they pull away. But here's what you must understand. No human being can be your source. Not one. Not your mother, not your father, not your partner, not your friend. Human beings are wells and wells run dry. Human beings are candles and candles burn out. If you keep drinking from a contaminated well, you will get sick. If you keep warming yourself by a flame that's gone cold, you will freeze. Your source must be something infinite. Your worth must be rooted in something unchanging. Your identity must be anchored in something that doesn't shift when people's moods shift, when their feelings change, when their interest fades. And until you relocate your source, you will continue this cycle. You will keep returning to the same person expecting different results. You will keep offering your heart to someone who's already shown you they don't know how to hold it. You will keep hoping that if you just love them harder, if you just prove yourself more, if you just wait longer, they will finally see your value. But the truth is this: people who are meant for you don't need convincing. They don't need to be chased. They don't need to be reminded of your worth. They see it, they honor it, and they protect it without you having to beg. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to answer it honestly. How much more of your life are you willing to sacrifice at the altar of someone else's indecision? How many more years will you give to someone who can't give you clarity? How many more tears will you cry over someone who sleeps peacefully while you're breaking? The truth is, you're not just losing time, you're losing yourself. Every day you stay in uncertainty, a piece of your potential dies. Every morning you wake up not knowing where you stand, your purpose gets a little more blurred. Your vision becomes clouded. Your dreams start to feel like distant memories instead of approaching realities. Let me tell you something powerful. God didn't create you to be an option. You weren't designed to be a backup plan. You weren't formed in your mother's womb to be someone's maybe. You are a divine original, crafted with intention, loaded with purpose, and destined for significance. But you cannot fulfill that destiny while you're entangled with someone who treats your presence like a convenience store, something they can visit whenever they need something, then leave without commitment. And I want to address something that many of you are thinking right now. You're saying, but Myles, you don't understand. If I walk away, I might lose them forever. What if they're the one and I just need to wait a little longer? Let me ask you this. If they're really the one, why do you have to beg for clarity? If they're truly meant for you, why does your relationship feel like a courtroom where you're constantly presenting evidence of your worth? If this is divine alignment, why does it require you to diminish yourself? Real love doesn't create confusion. Real commitment doesn't need years of convincing. Real partnership doesn't leave you questioning your value every single night. When something is right, there's pursuit, there's intention, there's consistency. There's a man or a woman who looks at you and says, I'm not losing this person, I'm not playing games, I'm not keeping my options open, this is it. You see, the problem isn't that you're not enough. The problem is that you're trying to force a decision from someone who has already decided they've decided to keep you in limbo. They've decided that having access to you without commitment is comfortable. They've decided that your patience is a resource they can exploit indefinitely. And here's what you need to understand. Asterisk, asterisk, a decision delayed indefinitely is actually a decision made. Asterisk, asterisk, they have decided. Their indecision, asterisk, is asterisk, their decision. Their silence, asterisk, is asterisk, their answer. Their need for more time, asterisk, is asterisk, their response. You're just refusing to accept it because it's not the answer you want to hear. Let me tell you something about people who genuinely want to be in your life. They don't need to be convinced. They don't need extended probation periods. They don't require endless demonstrations of your worth. When someone truly values you, they pursue clarity, not confusion. They create certainty, not chaos. They build, they don't stall. I've watched people wait for years, literal years, for someone to figure things out. And you know what happens? That person they were waiting for suddenly meets someone else. And within 3 months, they're committed, they're engaged, they've moved in together. Suddenly they didn't need any more time. Suddenly they were absolutely sure. The only thing that changed wasn't their capacity for commitment, it was the person they were with. That should tell you everything you need to know. The problem was never that they needed time. The problem was that they needed time away from asterisk you. Asterisk because when the right person shows up, the person they actually want, time becomes irrelevant. Uncertainty evaporates. All those complicated feelings suddenly become very, very simple. So stop torturing yourself with hope. Stop assigning them qualities they haven't demonstrated. Stop building a relationship in your mind that doesn't exist in reality. What you're in love with isn't them, it's your potential, your fantasy, your projection of who they could be if they would just choose you. But they're showing you who they actually are. Someone who is comfortable watching you wait. Someone who benefits from your loyalty without offering their own. Someone who wants the privileges of your presence without the responsibility of commitment. And the hardest part, you've been taught to call this love. You've been told that real love is patient. Real love waits. Real love doesn't pressure. And so you sit there year after year calling your captivity commitment and your confusion connection. But let me tell you something that might shake the foundation of everything you believe. Asterisk real love does not leave you in limbo. Asterisk real love does not ask you to suspend your destiny indefinitely. Real love does not require you to prove yourself worthy of clarity. When God gives vision, He gives provision. When God gives direction, He gives confirmation. When God ordains a union, He doesn't hide it in riddles and half-truths. He doesn't make you decode mixed signals like you're cracking some ancient hieroglyphic code. You know what situationships really are? They're emotional sharecropping. Do you know what sharecropping was? After slavery ended, they told free people, you're free now, but you have no land, no tools, no seeds. So here's what we'll do: you work my land, use my tools, plant my seeds, and at the end of the harvest, we'll split the profit. Sounds fair, right? Except the landowner controlled everything. The prices, the accounting, the distribution. And somehow, no matter how hard those people worked, they always ended up in debt. Always ended up owing more than they earned. Always ended up trapped in a system that looked like opportunity but functioned like bondage. That's exactly what a situationship is. They're giving you just enough access to keep you invested, but they control all the terms. They decide when you meet. They decide what you're called. They decide how much of their life you get to occupy. And no matter how much you invest your time, your body, your emotional energy, your youth, you never accumulate equity. You never get ownership. You're always working someone else's field, building someone else's future, waiting for a harvest that never comes. And just like those sharecroppers, you're afraid to leave because you've already invested so much. You think, if I just work a little harder, if I just wait a little longer, surely the harvest will come. But beloved, some fields aren't meant to produce for you. Some fields will take everything you have and give you nothing but exhaustion in return. Let me tell you something that might shake you. God never intended for you to be comfortable in the wrong place. He will allow discomfort. He will allow frustration. He will allow that gnawing feeling in your soul that says, this isn't it, because sometimes divine discomfort is the only thing that will move you toward your divine assignment. I've counseled too many people who stayed in situations that were killing them slowly. And when I asked them why, they said, well, I'm waiting on God. But beloved, sometimes God is waiting on you. He's already shown you the door. He's already given you the green light. He's already confirmed in your spirit that it's time to move, but you're still sitting there asking for another sign. You want to know what the Israelites' problem was in Egypt? It wasn't just that Pharaoh wouldn't let them go. It was that even after they left, their hearts were still there. They got into the wilderness and started complaining about the leeks and the garlic and the fish they ate in Egypt. They romanticized their slavery. They forgot about the beatings, the oppression, the way their children were being murdered. All they could remember was the food. And this is what we do. We romanticize the wrong season. We forget the tears we cried, the nights we couldn't sleep, the way that place or that person made us feel small and insignificant. We forget all of that and we start remembering the good days, the few moments when things weren't terrible, and we mistake that for a reason to go back. But hear me clearly, nostalgia is not the same as divine direction. Just because you have good memories in a place doesn't mean you're supposed to build your future there. Egypt had some benefits, yes, but it was never the promised land. The job has some perks, yes, but it's not your purpose. The relationship has some good moments, yes, but it's not your covenant connection. You've got to develop the spiritual maturity to distinguish between what's familiar and what's fertile. Familiar feels safe because you know it, but fertile is where your future grows. And sometimes you have to leave the familiar to get to the fertile. You see, the enemy of your destiny is not always opposition. Sometimes it's comfort. It's the place that feels good but produces nothing. It's the relationship that feels safe but stunts your growth. It's the job that pays the bills but buries your calling. And I want you to hear me clearly on this. God will never lead you to a place just because it feels good. He'll lead you to places where you can be fruitful, where you can multiply, where you can bear fruit that remains. Abraham had to leave Ur. Moses had to leave Egypt. Ruth had to leave Moab. Even Jesus had to leave the carpenter's shop. Leaving isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's God saying, what I have for you cannot fit in where you are. Now here's what happens when you refuse to leave familiar for fertile. You become a prisoner of your own comfort zone. You start defending your limitations. You start explaining why you can't instead of discovering how you can. You become a curator of excuses rather than a creator of solutions. I've watched brilliant people die in familiar places, not physical death that would be merciful. I'm talking about the slow death of potential, the gradual dimming of the light that once burned in their eyes, the progressive settling that turns eagles into chickens. And the saddest part, they convince themselves they made the right choice. They call their fear wisdom. They call their stagnation contentment. They call their buried dreams maturity. But you can't fool the still small voice inside that whispers, you were made for more than this. Listen to me. Your comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there. Gardens don't flourish in living rooms. Seeds don't germinate in safety deposit boxes. And your destiny will never sprout in the soil of sameness. Fertile ground requires something from you. It demands that you plant, that you water, that you cultivate, that you pull weeds, that you wait through seasons. Familiar ground asks nothing of you, that's why it produces nothing for you. So the question is not whether fertile is harder than familiar. The question is whether you want a life of convenience or a life of consequence. Let me tell you something powerful. Most people spend their entire lives building monuments in the cemetery of their comfort zone. They decorate their familiar ground, they landscape it, they make it pretty, but nothing grows there. And here's what breaks my heart. When they reach the end of their journey, they realize they've been living in a graveyard of possibilities. I've stood at too many bedsides. I've held too many hands in those final moments. And you know what I've never heard? I've never heard someone say, I wish I had played it safer. I've never heard anyone whisper, I'm so glad I never took that risk. What I hear instead are the haunting echoes of what if and if only. The fertile ground doesn't just grow crops, it grows you. See, when you step into that unfamiliar territory, when you push that seed of potential into the resistant soil of the unknown, something miraculous happens. You don't just produce a harvest. You become someone who can produce a harvest. The process transforms you. Think about this. A weightlifter doesn't get stronger lifting the same weight over and over. The muscle grows when you add resistance, when you push beyond what's comfortable. Your character works the same way. Your capacity expands the same way. Your calling matures the same way. I learned this watching my mother. She could have stayed comfortable, stayed familiar. But she took the risk of investing in her children's education when she barely had enough for food. That fertile ground of sacrifice, it didn't just produce educated children. It produced a legacy. It produced generations who learned that you plant in the hard seasons so you can harvest in the later seasons. And here's what I need you to understand about legacy. It's not just what you leave asterisk for asterisk people. It's what you leave asterisk in asterisk people. You see, the father who sacrificed his vacation didn't just leave money for education. He left a principle in his children. He left a value system. He left a demonstration that some things are worth waiting for, worth fighting for, worth delaying gratification for. That's the seed that keeps producing long after you're gone. I've seen families where the grandchildren are still benefiting from decisions made by a grandparent they never met.
Why?
Because that grandparent planted a seed of integrity, a seed of work ethic, a seed of faith, and it kept multiplying through the generations. But I've also seen the opposite. I've seen families where one generation's refusal to plant has created poverty that echoes through time. Not just financial poverty, although that's real, but poverty of vision, poverty of discipline, poverty of hope. Because when you don't plant, you don't just rob yourself of a harvest. You rob your children of the example they need. You teach them to consume rather than cultivate. You teach them to spend rather than sow. You teach them that life is about what you can grab right now instead of what you can grow for tomorrow. Listen to me carefully. Every generation either plants for the next or steals from the next. There's no middle ground. You're either building a legacy or you're building a deficit. You're either creating momentum or you're creating détente. I'm not just talking about financial debt. I'm talking about spiritual debt, emotional debt, character debt. The question you have to ask yourself is this: what am I planting today that my children's children will harvest? What habits am I establishing? What values am I demonstrating? What investments am I making, not just in stocks and bonds, but in character, in relationships and purpose? Because the most valuable inheritance you can leave isn't in a bank account. It's in the principles you live by. It's in the faith you demonstrated. It's in the way you handled hardship, the way you served others, the way you honored your word, even when it cost you something. That's the seed that never stops producing. I want you to think about the people in your life right now who are watching you. Your children, your employees, your community. They're not just observing what you say. They're observing what you do when no one's looking. They're watching how you handle disappointment. They're watching whether you plant or whether you just complain about the harvest you don't have. Because here's what most people don't understand about influence: you cannot give what you don't have. You cannot lead where you haven't been. You cannot teach what you haven't learned. Your children will not rise beyond the ceiling you've placed on your own life. If you've stopped growing, you've stopped leading. If you've stopped learning, you've stopped qualifying for greater influence. I've watched parents demand excellence from their children while they themselves live in mediocrity. I've seen leaders call for sacrifice while they indulge in comfort. I've heard preachers talk about faith while they live in fear. And every single time, the next generation sees right through it. They don't do what you say, they become what you are. That's why the greatest gift you can give to those who are watching you isn't your advice. It's your example. It's not your sermons, it's your life. Because when your life speaks, words become unnecessary. When your character shines, explanations aren't needed. When your consistency demonstrates your convictions, people stop questioning and start following. Think about the people who changed your life. Not the ones who talked to you, but the ones who walked in front of you. The teacher who stayed late not because they had to, but because they cared. The parent who worked 3 jobs without complaining. The mentor who believed in you before you believed in yourself. They didn't change you with their words. They changed you with their witness. And now it's your turn. Someone is watching you right now, deciding whether they should keep going or give up. Someone is looking at your life, wondering if this faith thing is real or just religious talk. Someone younger is studying you, determining what kind of adult they want to become. What are they learning? What are they seeing? When they watch you navigate pressure, what conclusion are they drawing? When they observe how you treat people who can't do anything for you, what lesson are they absorbing? Your legacy is not what you say about yourself. It's what they say about you when you're not in the room. It's the standard they hold themselves to because they watched you hold it first. I'm reminded of a young man who worked in my organization years ago. Sharp mind, incredible potential, but he had a habit of shifting blame. Every time something went wrong, he had a story ready. Someone else dropped the ball. The timing wasn't right. The resources weren't adequate. Always an explanation, never accountability. I watched this pattern repeat itself over months, and I watched something else too. I watched the younger staff members who reported to him begin to adopt the same language, the same deflection, the same refusal to own their mistakes. He was teaching them, not through formal instruction, through demonstration, through modeling a way of operating that would cripple their leadership before it ever fully developed. That's the sobering truth about influence. You're always teaching. The question is, what curriculum are you running? What syllabus have you authored with your choices, your character, your consistency? And here's what makes this especially weighty. The people watching you most closely are often the ones you're least aware of. That young professional in your industry who follows your career from a distance. That nephew who hangs on your every word at family gatherings. That colleague who's studying how you handle conflict, disappointment, success. You have spectators you've never met. Students you didn't enroll. Disciples you didn't recruit. They're watching anyway. Which brings me to something we need to address head on. The illusion of private behavior. We convince ourselves that what we do when no one's watching doesn't matter to our legacy, that we can compartmentalize, that we can be one person in public and another in private, and somehow only the public persona counts. That's not how influence works. That's not how integrity operates. And that's certainly not how legacy is built. The private person always leaks into the public presence. Always. How you treat your family behind closed doors will eventually show up in how you lead your team. The character you display when there's no audience will ultimately determine the impact you make when every eye is on you. I've watched leaders who could command thousands but couldn't command their own appetites. They could inspire nations but couldn't inspire respect in their own children. They could build empires but couldn't build a marriage. And eventually, the private chaos leaked into the public platform. This is why I say to you today, your private life is not separate from your public calling. It's the foundation of it. The real you isn't who you are on the platform. The real you is who you are at 3 in the morning when no one's watching. The real you is how you respond when you're stuck in traffic. The real you is what websites you visit when you're alone. The real you is how you speak to the server who got your order wrong. And here's what's remarkable about character. You can't fake it long term. You can manufacture an image for a season. You can perform integrity for a while. But character always reveals itself under pressure. When the crisis comes, when the opportunity for compromise presents itself, when nobody would know if you cut that corner, that's when your true character emerges. Let me tell you what I've discovered after decades of leadership development. Character isn't about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's about closing the gap between who you are in public and who you are in private. It's about making your private standards higher than your public reputation. I know a leader who made this commitment years ago. He decided that he would never do anything in private that he couldn't defend in public. Not because he feared exposure, but because he understood that hypocrisy is exhausting. Living a double life drains the very energy you need for your calling. So he became radically honest, consistently kind, privately generous. Nobody saw most of it. There were no cameras, no applause, no social media posts. But over time, something remarkable happened. His influence became unshakable because people could sense, even if they couldn't articulate it, that there was no gap between his presentation and his reality. That's the foundation. That's the bedrock of influence that lasts. You see, when you are the same person in public that you are in private, when you are the same person on the platform that you are in your living room, when you treat the janitor with the same respect that you treat the CEO, people notice. They may not say it out loud, but something in their spirit recognizes authenticity, and they are drawn to it like a magnet. Now, I want to shift gears here because there's another dimension to this that we absolutely must explore, and that is the power of serving before you lead. You know, in our culture today, everybody wants to be the leader. Everybody wants the platform. Everybody wants the microphone. Everybody wants their name in lights. But very few people want to do the hidden work that qualifies them for that position. Very few people want to serve in obscurity. Very few people want to carry someone else's vision before they carry their own. But I'm telling you, and I've seen this throughout my entire life, the greatest leaders are always the greatest servants first. Jesus taught this principle perfectly. He said, the greatest among you must be the servant of all. Not servant as in doormat. Not servant as in weak or spineless. But servant as in willing to meet needs, willing to add value, willing to lift others even when there's no personal benefit. Think about it this way. If you want to be trusted with much, you must first be faithful with little. If you want to influence thousands, prove yourself with the 10. If you want to lead a nation, prove yourself in your neighborhood. If you want to manage a corporation, prove yourself managing your own household first. This principle flies in the face of our instant microwave overnight success culture. But it is an unbreakable law. You cannot skip steps and sustain influence. You can fake it for a season. You can market yourself into a position. You can manipulate circumstances to get a title. But if you haven't built the internal capacity through service, the weight of leadership will crush you. I've watched people grab positions they weren't ready for, and within months they unraveled. Why? Because their character couldn't sustain the altitude. Their integrity couldn't handle the pressure. Their substance couldn't match the size of their platform. And here's what most people miss. Asterisk, asterisk, your character is not built in public, it's revealed there. Asterisk, asterisk, you don't develop integrity on the stage. You develop it in the shadows. You don't form your principles when the cameras are rolling. You form them when nobody's watching. The platform doesn't create your character, it exposes it. Think about it. When you put pressure on a tube of toothpaste, what comes out? Whatever was inside. The pressure didn't create the contents, it just revealed them. And this is exactly what happens when God promotes you. The elevation doesn't change who you are, it shows who you've always been. I've counseled leaders who were faithful with 100 people but became arrogant with 1,000. I've watched ministers who were humble in the basement church but became pompous in the megachurch. And every time I ask them, what changed? The answer is always the same, nothing changed. The pride was always there. The arrogance was always there. The elevation just gave it permission to show itself. Asterisk, asterisk, this is why preparation is more important than opportunity. Asterisk, asterisk, you see, God is not impressed with your talent. He's impressed with your trustworthiness. He's not moved by your gifts. He's moved by your faithfulness. He doesn't promote based on your ability, he promotes based on your availability and your integrity. The Bible says that promotion comes from the Lord. But understand this, God will never promote you beyond your capacity to remain humble. He will never elevate you past your ability to stay dependent on him. He will never increase your influence beyond your willingness to serve. Why? Because he loves you too much to let you destroy yourself. I want you to hear this carefully. Asterisk, asterisk, a delayed promotion is not denied promotion, it's divine protection. Asterisk, asterisk, when you're ready for the responsibility that comes with the visibility, God will release it. When your character matches your calling, the doors will open. When your private life aligns with your public gift, the platform will appear. But until then, stay faithful where you are. Keep developing in obscurity. Keep building character when no one's applauding. Keep doing right when no one's watching. Because the hidden years are not wasted years, they're preparation years. Let me tell you something that will revolutionize your perspective. God is more interested in who you're becoming than what you're doing. The world celebrates the performance, but heaven invests in the person. The world applauds the miracle, but God develops the miracle worker. And here's what most people miss: your wilderness is custom designed for your assignment. The challenges you face in obscurity are perfectly matched to the responsibility you'll carry in visibility. Moses spent 40 years in a desert because he was going to lead a nation through a desert. David fought a lion and a bear in private because he was going to fight a giant in public. Joseph learned integrity in Potiphar's house because he would need it in Pharaoh's palace. Your preparation isn't random. It's strategic. It's intentional. It's precise. Think about the potter and the clay. The potter doesn't put the clay on display first and shape it later. No! First comes the pressure, the kneading, the reshaping, the firing in the kiln. All of that happens before anyone sees the finished vessel. And that firing process, it happens in a closed oven, in darkness, in intense heat. But without that hidden process, the vessel would never hold what it's designed to carry. You are being fired right now. You are being strengthened in the kiln of obscurity. And I know it's hot in there. I know it feels like you're being pressed from every side. But that pressure isn't trying to break you, it's trying to prepare you. That heat isn't meant to destroy you, it's meant to transform you. Let me share something powerful with you. Jesus spent 30 years in preparation for 3 years of ministry. Think about that ratio. 30 years hidden, 3 years visible. That's a 10-to-1 ratio. 10 years of preparation for every year of ministry. The Son of God himself spent most of his earthly life in obscurity, working in a carpenter's shop, unknown, unrecognized, waiting for his time. If Jesus needed 30 years of preparation for 3 years of ministry, what makes us think we can skip the process? What makes us think we deserve shortcuts that even the Messiah didn't take? You see, wilderness isn't just preparation, it's revelation. It's where you discover who you really are when no one is watching. When there are no cameras, no applause, no validation from the crowd. The wilderness strips away everything false, everything superficial, everything you thought defined you, until all that remains is the raw truth of your character. And here's what breaks my heart. So many people today are running from their wilderness instead of embracing it. They're medicating their obscurity with social media addiction, numbing their waiting season with endless entertainment, distracting themselves from the very process that's meant to forge them into who they're destined to become. They're so terrified of being unknown that they never allow themselves to be truly formed. But listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. Your wilderness is not your punishment. It's your preparation. It's not rejection, it's protection. God isn't hiding you because he's forgotten you. He's hiding you because he's forming you. He's shielding you from exposure you're not ready for from platforms that would destroy you, from success that would ruin you. Think about it practically. Would you want a surgeon operating on you who skipped medical school? Would you fly in a plane with a pilot who never went through training? Would you trust a bridge designed by an engineer who refused to study physics? Of course not. We understand the necessity of preparation in every professional field. Yet somehow we think spiritual calling and personal purpose should require no development, no testing, no refinement. The wilderness tests whether your gift is genuine or just talent. It reveals whether your calling is authentic or just ambition. It exposes whether you're driven by purpose or merely by applause. And most importantly, it determines whether you'll be able to handle what's coming without it destroying you. Because here's what most people don't understand about preparation. It's not just training, it's transformation. It's not just learning skills, it's becoming someone different. The person who enters the wilderness is never the same person who emerges from it. Think about Joseph in that Egyptian prison. He didn't just wait there, he was being remade there. Every day of injustice was stripping away his youthful arrogance. Every moment of darkness was teaching him patience. Every false accusation was building in him an unshakable integrity. The prison wasn't punishment, it was preparation. God was transforming a dreamer into a deliverer, a boy with visions into a man with wisdom. Or consider Moses in that desert with sheep. 40 years. Do you know how long 40 years is? That's longer than most careers. That's half a lifetime. And Moses spent it doing what seemed like the most insignificant work imaginable, leading animals to water, protecting them from predators, guiding them to pasture. But God wasn't wasting Moses' time. He was preparing him to lead people who would act exactly like sheep. He was teaching him patience with stubborn, rebellious creatures who constantly wandered off. He was training him in the geography of the very desert he would later navigate with millions of people. Every seemingly wasted year was actually essential preparation. Every frustrating day was building necessary capacity. The wilderness wasn't delaying Moses' calling, it was making his calling possible. This is what you must understand. The size of your preparation determines the scope of your impact. You cannot have a global ministry with local preparation. You cannot have generational influence with momentary training. You cannot sustain long-term success with short-term development. God will never promote you beyond your preparation. He loves you too much to set you up for failure. He loves his purpose too much to let it be destroyed by your immaturity. So he waits. He develops. He prepares. And while he's preparing you, he's simultaneously preparing everything else, the people who will receive you, the resources you'll need, the doors that will open at exactly the right moment. You see, God's timing is not random. It's orchestrated. It's intentional. When you finally step into your moment, it's because everything, and I mean asterisk, everything asterisk has been aligned. The problem is we want the position before we have the character to sustain it. We want the platform before we have the message that's worth hearing. We want the influence before we've learned how to steward it with wisdom and humility. But God knows better. He knows that premature exposure leads to premature death. He knows that if he gives you the blessing before you're ready, it will destroy you. So he waits, not to punish you, but to protect you, not to deny you, but to develop you. Think about this. Every delay you've experienced was actually a divine investment. Every season where it seemed like nothing was happening was actually a season where asterisk, everything asterisk was happening just beneath the surface. God was building your foundation. He was deepening your roots. He was strengthening your character so that when the winds of success and opposition come and they will come, you won't be uprooted. I've watched too many people get what they prayed for, only to lose it because they weren't prepared to keep it. The promotion they begged for became the pressure that broke them. The relationship they desperately wanted became the prison they couldn't escape. The business opportunity they chased became the burden that bankrupted them, not financially, but spiritually, emotionally, mentally. Why? Because they bypassed the process. They wanted the fruit without the cultivation. They wanted the harvest without the planting, the watering, the waiting. But you're different. You're still here. You're still standing. You haven't quit, even when quitting seemed like the most logical option. And that tells me something. God is still working. The process isn't over. The preparation isn't complete, but it's happening. Right now, even as you listen to these words, God is positioning pieces on the board of your life that you can't even see yet. And here's what I need you to understand about this divine positioning. Asterisk, asterisk, it doesn't always feel divine, asterisk, asterisk. Sometimes it feels like chaos. Sometimes it feels like everything is falling apart when actually God is putting everything in place. I've seen this principle play out countless times. A person loses a job and they're devastated. They can't understand why God would allow this. But 6 months later, they look back and realize that if they had stayed in that position, they would have missed the opportunity that was custom designed for their purpose. The loss wasn't punishment, it was preparation. It was God clearing the runway so something bigger could land. You see, asterisk, asterisk, God's positioning often requires displacement, asterisk, asterisk. You can't be in two places at once. Sometimes he has to move you out of where you are to get you to where you need to be. And the transition, that in-between space, that's where faith gets tested. That's where you find out if you really trust the process or if you only trust the comfort. Let me take you deeper. There's a principle in Scripture that says God leads us in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Notice, it's not just for your sake. It's for his name. His reputation is attached to your destination. That means asterisk, asterisk, he is more committed to getting you there than you are, asterisk, asterisk. Think about that. The creator of the universe has staked his reputation on your arrival. He won't let his name fail, which means he won't let you fail. But here's the catch. Asterisk, asterisk, you have to stay in the process, asterisk, asterisk. You can't jump out of the oven before the baking is done. You can't pull yourself out of the potter's hands before the vessel is shaped. This is where so many people forfeit their future. They quit in the preparation phase because they can't see the product phase yet. I want to speak to someone right now who's about to give up. You're tired. You're frustrated. You feel like you've been waiting forever and nothing is happening. Listen to me carefully. Asterisk, asterisk, the fact that you're still standing is proof that God hasn't finished with you yet, asterisk, asterisk. The fact that you still have breath in your lungs means your purpose isn't expired. What you're feeling right now isn't the end, it's the signal that you're close. The enemy doesn't attack finished projects, he attacks works in progress because he knows what's coming. Let me tell you something that might shake you. Your depression might be the birth pains of your destiny. When a woman is in labor, the pain isn't random, it's purposeful. It's signaling that new life is about to emerge. And the closer she gets to delivery, the more intense the contractions become. You're not falling apart. You're about to give birth to the next version of yourself. I've watched too many people abort their destiny in the waiting room. They gave up one day before the breakthrough. They surrendered one prayer short of the miracle. They quit one decision away from the turnaround. Don't let that be your story. The pressure you're under right now is preparing you for the weight of glory you're about to carry. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Your current struggle is custom designed to develop the exact strength you'll need for your next assignment. David faced a lion and a bear before he faced Goliath. Those weren't random encounters, they were targeted training sessions. When he stood in front of that giant, everyone else saw an impossible obstacle. David saw a familiar assignment. He'd already developed giant-killing faith in the wilderness when nobody was watching. Your wilderness isn't wasted. Every tear you've cried has been collecting in heaven's bottle. Every silent prayer you've whispered in the dark has been recorded. Every moment you chose to get up when everything in you wanted to stay down has been building spiritual muscle you don't even know you have yet. You're stronger than you think. You've survived every bad day you've ever had. Your track record is 100%. And let me tell you something else. The same God who kept you through every storm you've already weathered hasn't suddenly lost his ability to keep you now. His mercies didn't run out last night. They're new this morning. The same grace that brought you this far is available right now in this moment for this step. You don't need to figure out next month. You don't need to solve next year. You just need to take the next breath, then the next step, then the next decision. That's how you climb mountains one step at a time. That's how you survive storms one moment at a time. That's how you fulfill purpose one obedient decision at a time. And let me tell you something, the enemy of your destiny isn't always opposition. Sometimes it's distraction. Sometimes it's comfort. Sometimes it's the applause of people who celebrate you for being less than what God called you to be. I've watched people abort their assignment because someone told them they were already doing enough. I've seen destinies derailed not by attacks but by approval from the wrong crowd. Listen to me carefully. If people are comfortable with where you are, you're probably not where you're supposed to be. Your assignment will always make some people uncomfortable because it challenges the status quo. It exposes mediocrity. It rebukes complacency. Jesus made the religious people uncomfortable. Moses made Pharaoh uncomfortable. David made Saul uncomfortable. Paul made the Sanhedrin uncomfortable. If your assignment doesn't threaten something in the kingdom of darkness, you might want to check if you're really living on purpose. Now, here's what I need you to understand about the process. Purpose is never instant. We live in a microwave generation that wants instant results, instant success, instant recognition. But God works in seasons. He works in process. He works in preparation. Joseph didn't go from the pit to the palace overnight. There were 13 years between the dream and the fulfillment. 13 years of testing, training, character development, and positioning. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before God said, "Now you're ready." David was anointed king as a teenager but didn't sit on the throne until he was 30 years old. Why? Because the gift might be ready, but the character needs time. The calling might be clear, but the capacity needs expansion. The vision might be from God, but the vessel needs preparation. You see, God is not just interested in using you. He's interested in shaping you. He's not just calling you to do something. He's calling you to become someone. And that becoming process, that's where most people quit. They quit in the wilderness. They quit in the waiting room. They quit when nobody's watching and nothing's happening. But that's where the real work happens. That's where the roots go deep. That's where the foundation gets laid. You can't build a skyscraper on a shallow foundation. You can't carry global impact with local character. You can't sustain public success with private compromise. The mirror reveals what the spotlight hides. The camera captures what the crowd misses. And when the lights go down, when the applause fades, when the platform disappears, what remains is the truth of who you really are. I've seen leaders who could move thousands but couldn't manage themselves. I've watched people change nations while destroying their families. I've witnessed world changers who became self-destroyers. And every time, without exception, it was because they believed the stage was more important than the soul. But here's what experience has taught me. Your private world determines your public worth. Your hidden habits shape your visible harvest. Your secret disciplines create your seen distinctions. You cannot separate the person from the performance. You cannot divorce character from capacity. When you compromise in private, you contaminate your public. When you cut corners where no one sees, you create cracks that everyone will eventually feel. When you neglect the garden of your soul, the fruit of your labor will reveal the rot. This is why I'm relentless about this message. This is why I won't let you celebrate your gifts while neglecting your growth. This is why I refuse to applaud your talent while your character crumbles. Because I love you too much to watch you succeed yourself into destruction. The foundation you build in secret is the only thing strong enough to sustain what God builds in public. The disciplines you maintain in darkness become the strength you display in daylight. The integrity you guard when alone becomes the influence you wield when together. You want to know why some people's success is short-lived? Why some ministries explode and then implode? Why some careers skyrocket and then crash? It's not because they lack talent. It's not because they lacked opportunity. It's not because they lack platform. It's because they built everything on the sand of public approval rather than the rock of private integrity. Your character is the container for your calling. Your integrity is the infrastructure for your influence. Your private discipline is the power source for your public delivery. And no matter how gifted you are, no matter how anointed you seem, no matter how many doors open without the foundation of character, everything you build will eventually fall. And I want you to understand something profound today. Asterisk, asterisk character is not just what you do when people are watching, it's who you are when no one will ever know. Asterisk, asterisk, it's the decision you make in the hotel room when you're away from home. It's the way you treat the waiter who can do nothing for your career. It's the integrity you maintain in your finances when no audit is coming. It's the purity you protect in your thought life when no accountability partner is present. You see, many of us have mastered the art of asterisk, asterisk, public performance, asterisk, asterisk, while neglecting the practice of asterisk, asterisk, private transformation, asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. We've become experts at looking the part without actually becoming the person. We dress for success but haven't dealt with the brokenness. We speak with authority but live with compromise. We project strength but harbor secret weakness. And here's what's tragic. Asterisk, 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 you can fool people for a season, but you cannot fool destiny for a lifetime. Asterisk, asterisk, the truth always emerges. Character always reveals itself. The hidden things always come to light not to destroy you, but because integrity is like a seed. Whatever you've planted in secret will eventually produce a harvest in public. I've watched leaders fall who had everything: charisma, opportunity, resources, influence. And every single time, it wasn't the external pressure that brought them down. It was the internal compromise they had made peace with. It was the character crack they had learned to live with. It was the private decision they thought would never matter publicly. Asterisk, asterisk, your private world creates your public world. Asterisk, asterisk, what you become in the dark determines what you can sustain in the light. So let me ask you, what are you doing when no one is looking? What are you watching when no one is monitoring? What are you thinking when no one is listening? What are you practicing when no one is grading? Because those are the moments that truly define you. Those are the decisions that build your foundation. Those are the choices that determine whether your success will be sustainable or just seasonal. Character is built in the moments when taking a shortcut would be easier, when lying would be more convenient, when compromising would be more profitable, when quitting would be more comfortable. Asterisk, asterisk, your character is forged in the furnace of inconvenient integrity. Asterisk, asterisk, and if you will commit today not to building a better image, but to becoming a better person, then the influence you're preparing for will have a foundation strong enough to hold it.